Hi guys, this is Nat from Guiri Ear. What I'm going to be talking about today is getting a pet or adopting a pet here in Spain. Uh, no one would know this better than myself because I have one dog, a greyhound, and two cats. We'll just start it off by just kind of telling you what happened with myself and then a little bit more about advice and of course, being a foreigner, being an expat here in Spain, and the differences of being a pet owner here in Spain versus being one at home. I had adopted my dog in 2011. So I actually lived in Spain just a little bit over a year, and I had adopted a greyhound from a shelter. So if you do decide to proceed with adopting or getting an animal, whichever word you want to use, I would definitely recommend, just as I would back home, is go through a shelter. For every animal that you are adopting in a shelter, you're taking one animal. I kind of like to think of it as you're taking one animal away from the pound. And, dogs and cats get euthanized in the pound, whereas in a no-kill shelter, they don't. So if you do want to pursue getting a pet, I would definitely look into protectoras, okay? So going into my story with my dog. So I got my dog in 2011. I adopted a very handsome greyhound. He's tall and elegant. He's just gorgeous. But little did I know that he had some severe separation anxiety. Really severe, to the point that he couldn't be left alone even for 5 minutes without destroying the home. So after 1 year of living in my apartment alone, he had completely destroyed the wood door of my house, and we had to, of course, I had to lose my security deposit, and I totally understand. So if you are going to get a dog, keep in mind, especially if the dog is not a puppy, and even if they are a puppy, they could still get separation anxiety with you. Separation anxiety is a real thing, and your pet could destroy your home. So if you are going to proceed with getting a dog, I would definitely question the protectora or whoever. Does this dog show symptoms of separation anxiety? And if he does, I leave that to you. You can continue to adopt the dog. I actually don't regret it in the long run because I love my dog, and he slowly got over it. But it requires a great deal of patience. So if you don't have the patience, I don't recommend going through with adopting a dog that might have separation anxiety. It's something that I would have asked about from the start. But again, I had just been living in Spain a little bit over a year. My Spanish was still rusty. So pardon me, I'm talking very congested right now. So I don't think I could communicate as well as I could now. So do keep that in mind. My dog eventually got over it, but it took years. And keep in mind, I do completely work from home now. My house is my office. So this made a big difference, as well as that I spend more time at home than the average person. If you are going to be a foreigner who is working at an academy, or I don't know, maybe you are a lawyer working in a firm here, you're going to be out all day and you might be at weird hours. And I definitely would think twice about having a dog in general. Separation anxiety or non-separation anxiety, do you have the time and means to take care of this animal? I was in a different group. I had, the way that my schedule worked before, previously, a few years ago, I was working out of the house, but only a few hours. And then now I completely work at home with my practice. So keep that in mind. And my dog did eventually get better, but it took a good 2.5 years to get all the separation anxiety out. He's now 11 years old. So do keep that in mind. Now, if you work from home and you don't get a barker, so it's another thing that you want to assess. Do you know about this dog? Do you know if he's going to be barking at home? You don't know. He's a dog. So if you do work from home, it's probably going to work out for you much better. But do keep in mind that dogs bark. So I would be giving this advice to you whether you were here in Spain or if you were in the States or if you were in the UK or wherever. So that's one aspect of it. Another aspect of adopting an animal or a dog or a cat here is that we might not have the means. As foreigners, as Guiris, we might not have the means or networks that when we go away to travel, so for example, if I go home for 3 weeks in August, do I have the means to have a friend or a family member take care of my dog for me while I'm gone? Most likely, if you're a foreigner here, you don't have family here. And if you do have friends, they might be working here as well, and they can't take care of your pet for you. And I'm just thinking about it now. Like I was lucky. I lucked out. I used alternative means for my animals to be taken care of when I vacation or when I'm traveling. And I travel quite a bit, by the way, because my work allows me to work with a computer and work from wherever. So this is another thing that you've got to assess. Whether you have a dog or a cat, do you have the means of taking care of this animal, especially not just when you're at work, when you go away? And it's kind of inevitable. Once you are a foreigner, it's kind of inevitable that at least once a year you're going to go home. And during that time, it's never going to be for 3 days. It's going to be for more than that. Who will take care of your animal for you? In my case, I have 2 cats and 1 dog. The dog goes to, in the past, he would go to like a doggy daycare in Madrid. They're called Puligar, and I do recommend them. So they take out the dogs during the day. They don't put them in kennels, and then they basically bring the dogs. If the dogs have to sleep over at night, they bring them back to their apartment, and the dogs sleep over in their apartment. However, you could also use dogbuddy.es. And basically, it helps you find people who have dogs in your area, and you pay them a fee, maybe like 10 euros a day, and they take care of your dog while you're on vacation. Now, of course, this is dependent on your financial means. If you're going to be gone 3 weeks, and this person, maybe the ideal person you've found in your area to take care of your dog, charges 15 euros a day, you're going to have to assess if this is a financial decision that you can take, maybe not. So this is what we do. And then we have also, I've been lucky enough both here and in Madrid. I have neighbors who would come in and check in on my cats, change their litter, change their water, add food. And I was really lucky in Madrid because my neighbors also had cats, so we kind of had an exchange program. So when you guys go away, give me the key and I'll go into your house and take care of your cats, and vice versa. And then here, now I live in Malaga, what I've done is there's a friend of a friend, a lovely Russian girl that I know. She loves cats. And for 7 euros a day, she walks like 3 minutes from her apartment to my house. And for every day that we're gone for 7 euros, she basically takes care of the cats. And it's just fantastic. So, I mean, there are means if you don't have family or friends here to take care of your animals while you're gone on vacation, but it's going to cost you. And is this a financial decision you can really consider at the moment? And again, the advice wouldn't be so different if you were back home. If you were in your home country, it's not just about paying for daycare or paying for a doggy sitter while you're on vacation. Can you afford to have a pet? So I have 2 cats and 1 dog. I actually do think it's much more affordable to own a pet here in Spain than it is back home, okay? But it still costs you money, and if you are struggling from paycheck to paycheck, I am going to tell you right now, do not adopt a pet. If you don't have the money to take care of yourself, then don't get a pet. It's that simple. Another thing to consider is, and this is something that I've had to consider for myself, what happens when you move home? Okay, so what happens if you decide to move back home? Maybe if you live in England or in Scotland or somewhere nearby, it's not so bad, the 3-hour flight or 2.5-hour flight. But if you're like myself and you're from Canada and you live on the opposite side of the world, and not even the closest coast, the opposite side of the coast, you're in quite a bit of trouble. So my greyhound is now 11 years old, and I've actually made a very conscious decision that I will. Um, as much as I might want to go back home one day, I'm not sure if that will ever happen, but even if I do, I wouldn't do it while my greyhound is alive. So in other words, I want my greyhound to live his last few years here in Spain because I do not want him. Um, I don't want to put him because, big dogs or even medium-sized dogs, they can't go with you on the plane. So they basically go with all the suitcases in, sometimes sub-zero temperatures when you're flying over the Atlantic. And there are cases, I've read into this, where animals die while you're flying. And of course, they're probably not dying if they're, in a tiny little carrier underneath your seat. But it is quite common that animals do pass away in the flight, especially transatlantic, because the temperatures do get so low. They might just have a heart attack from the low temperatures. What the hell is going on? There's other dogs howling. So I really just, especially if you're North American, I would really reconsider adopting an animal if you're planning to go home soon. And again, it's more money. If you want to fly back with your animal, whether they're going to be underneath your seat or in cargo with the suitcases, it's going to be more money. Do you have the financial means to do this? So even for myself, I always knew that there's no way that I could bring my big, huge greyhound back to Canada. It would be cruel. 2.5 hours to London. Then there's like a layover of, 3 hours, and then another 10 hours flight to where I'm from in Canada. And then through there, we've got maybe an hour to pass through customs and all that. No way. But I do have 2 cats and 2 very anxious cats. And yet again, because my cats are still quite young, and maybe there will be a day when I move back. And I have to consider, what am I going to do? They're going to both be able to go into carriers. And the thing is that when you adopt a pet, you have to think about their well-being. What is in the best interest for them, despite the money? And this is how I think. And if you do think like that, then go through with getting a pet. So for myself, I have 2 very high anxiety cats. Lucky me, they're calico. So if you know anything about cats, vets will tell you that there's something about like not 3-colored, but like multicolored cats or orange cats that they tend to be a little bit more high-strung. It's something in the DNA. So they're 2 high-strung cats, mother and daughter, and I actually had to drive with them from Madrid to Malaga for 6 hours. They actually broke through the pet carrier in my car, and it was such a danger when I was moving from Madrid to Malaga, that they broke out within 45 minutes of my drive. I was by myself. And they were running all over the car. They were even trying to get under my foot, under the brakes. Never again. So imagine, that's how my cats reacted in a car. Imagine how they would react flying. So again, this is what you're going to have to consider as an animal owner in another country, whether it be Spain or Germany or wherever, is that if one day you go back home, how are you going to prepare the return trip with your animal? If you've got smaller animals, you do have the luxury of putting them in a pet carrier that can go under your seat. But if they're bigger, they have to go with cargo. And even with going underneath your seat, it's such a stress. I mean, the engine, the change in temperature, if you've got a high anxiety animal, I mean, this could give them a heart attack, literally. So really do think about that before you're getting a pet. If you do want to return one day back to your home country, what are you going to do with your animal? Don't leave him here. Don't leave him with someone. That's just the easy way out, and that's cruel to the animal. You've got to bring your animal back with you. So in my case, if I do have to cross that bridge one day, it's insane. I've gone through this scenario in my head in the past. Maybe my mom is going to have to come here, and between my mother, myself, and my boyfriend, we're going to have to carry the 2 separate animal carriers. maybe pay for business class seats, but that just might annoy people in business class. But I'm thinking because there's more room. This is what's going on in my head. I'm not even telling you. This is my theory of what I would do. And, I would have my mother there to help me because she's kind of knows a little bit more about animals and calming them down in carriers. And we would pay for business class seats, so we would get more space to tuck our animals underneath. And I still think whether you're in business class or economy, it would still be a nightmare ride. I mean, this is like a 20-hour journey for myself from one door to another, if not more. So there's that. Or this is ridiculous. I happen to know someone. I am not at all posh. I'm a very normal person. But I happen to know someone with a private plane that he uses for business reasons. And maybe I would have to contact him and be like, the next time you're doing business in Europe, can we hitch a ride with our animals? And literally bring it on to his private plane. And he has a bedroom in the plane that we can use. And I would still keep the animals in a carrier, but I could put my 2 big cats in this kind of like mega carrier and leave them in the bedroom of the plane. And of course, it's still horrible. It doesn't matter if you're in business class, economy, or private plane. They're still going to feel the vibration of the engine, the noise, the temperature change, and it could still put them in a heart attack, basically. So, this is where my brain goes when I think about having to bring back my cats back home if I do ever have to do it. So, getting a pet here, there's so many things we have to think about. Like, what are you going to do when you're on vacation? What are you going to do when you're at work? The financial cost of, keeping an animal, moving back. I mean, it's a lot to deal with. I think I've handled it quite well. I've been lucky enough to work at home. I've been lucky enough to, find really good dog sitters and cat sitters for my animals when I go away. But if you don't think that you have the financial means to do so, you don't think you have the time to do so, you don't think that in the long term you can do it, then don't do it. Goodness gracious. I'm sure if you want to get your pet fix, you can, if you're in Madrid, you could go to the cat cafe. There is one, I'm not joking. If I remember, it's near the Reina Sofia. There are means. You could become a dog walker and charge €7 per walk for people and get your daily dog fix with dog walking. But really, don't go through with it unless you're absolutely prepared. That would be the take-home message here. For myself, I've gone through quite the journey with my 3 animals, quite the journey. And it's been a lot of work. It's been a lot of money, and I don't lie about it. But if you really love animals, you think that you have the right type of home, the right type of working hours, the means to take care of them while you go on vacation, then absolutely go through with it. Especially if you're a permanent resident here in Spain and maybe you're already married with kids here and you're settled down. Absolutely go through with it. And the only thoughts that you need to think about are not about whether or not I'm going to be moving back home, but just, do I have the time to manage the animals? And, will they get along with my children? Do my children have allergies? And those are kind of like the normal things that you have to consider when getting a pet. But there is that extra step. If you're kind of more of like a transient Guiri here, think twice about it. There are instances, a lot of foreigners, especially here in the south part of Spain, they abandon their animals here. I think a lot of foreigners think, or before, like myself, I thought that the people who are abandoning animals were largely or mostly, or if not all, Spanish people. But no, there are cases of foreigners that have to move back home and, they leave their dog on the beach. Horrible, but, this stuff happens. So it's been lovely talking to you guys. Take home message, think twice before adopting an animal, especially for the fact that you live abroad. And that's it. Hopefully you guys don't hear my laundry going on in the background. It wasn't so professional, but that's it. Have a great day. Bye.